Data is always telling us a story.
Welcome to Agency for Change, a podcast from KidGlov that brings you the stories of changemakers who are actively working to improve our communities. In every episode, we'll meet with people who are making a lasting impact in the places we call home.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Agency for Change podcast. This is Lynn Weinman, President and Chief Strategist of KidGlov. So I just came across this astounding fact. By the year 2030, the entire baby boomer generation, which is approximately 73 million Americans, is going to be age 65 or older. And that is going to put a huge demand for senior care services and added pressure for the loved ones of those baby boomers who are helping support them and care them and guide them during this difficult time. Today's guest, Sara Robertson, who is CEO of the Arbors and the Ivy assisted living communities, has also just started a new educational resource called the Aging Parent Solution. And today she is going to talk with us about why we need this type of resource and education and just some trends in general and some advice if you are living through this situation. She also told me that her business has just been awarded one of the best cultures in the world, and she tells us how she did it. So everyone listen up. Sara, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today with you, Lynn.
Sara, I am really looking forward to talking to you because I know from personal experience, your work is so important. And you're going to talk about a lot of different businesses today. But let's start by having you tell us more about the Arbors and Ivy assisted living communities.
Sure, absolutely. So we are actually a third generation family business.
Congratulations on that. That's a big deal.
It is. Thank you. My grandparents actually started it with a construction company. They built like hotels and plazas, all sorts of different things. And then we eventually got into senior housing, which came before assisted living. And then in 1998, my dad decided to pursue assisted living. We built our very first community. We were actually pioneers in our area at the time, one of the few that kind of went up first.
Wow.
So that was a great experience. And we have really grown since then. We currently have 9 different communities throughout Massachusetts and Connecticut. We started our own home care agency called Integra Home Health.
I love that.
Thank you. And most recently, we've started our new business, which is the Aging Parent Solution, which is a senior education business.
You know, I can't wait to dive in on that senior education topic because I think it's so needed. But before we do, I really want to hear a little bit more about the Arbors and the Ivy because I know you have some unique things that you do to help care for residents and their families. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So, as a family business, we obviously prioritize our family values. We want to provide a warm, home-like atmosphere for our residents and their families. We actually just won the Best Culture in the World award
Wow.
through an organization that focuses on culture within senior livings. We have one of the highest scores that they've actually seen. And I would say it's because we are actively involved in our day-to-day business, right? So I'm an integral part of, the day-to-day operations and what's going on. My regional team has all been with the company over 10 years, up to 26 years. So we have a lot of longevity in our business as well. We have people that have been with us through day one, even on our site, some of our locations, people that I hired 25 years ago are
Wow.
still working within our communities. So I think that does say a lot about who we are and about what we focus on and prioritize as our values.
That's amazing, Sara. Sara, I have never heard of the Best Culture in the World award. It makes me want to go look it up right now, being a culture person myself. But I've always had the perception in my mind that sometimes the senior living industry can be a difficult industry to retain employees. I mean, wow, what's your secret? That's amazing.
I think it definitely is a challenge. I mean, we still face our own, employee turnover issues for sure. But I just think that, the more you put into your staff, your residents, your
Yeah.
families, the more that you can communicate and be transparent and be open,
Mm,
I think it just builds trust and confidence in what we do. I think people have faith in us and understand that, we're doing things for all the right reasons.
yeah. That's great. That's great. So 30 years, I mean, three generations, you've literally grown up in this business, Sarah. I bet you've seen a lot, and I'm really curious, what are some of the biggest hurdles you see that families have as they're caring for their loved ones today?
Sure. I think, so much has evolved within our industry over the past 25, 30 years that I've been in it. When we started this, we really didn't have a lot of competition. Our rates were lower. I'd say, the average assisted living probably cost around $3,000 a month. Now it's upwards of nine to $12,000 a month. Now, it's a highly competitive market.
Yeah.
It's very saturated in some areas. It also used to be more of an all-inclusive social model, where everything was kind of in one price. And now it's become more, you have different levels of care. You have
Hmm.
medication management packages. You have all these extra fees and costs that come with, purchasing, assisted living. And all of that has just changed the industry so much. But then on
Absolutely.
top of that, right, you have just where we are today. You know what I mean? Like with technology and, financial obstacles and all sorts of different things that we weren't dealing with before. There's a lot more people with dementia and
Mm,
cognitive impairments. You have the sandwich generation, right? Which is the generation caring for the baby boomers. And things are so different for that generation. They are not only caring for their aging parents, but they're also caring for their own children. They are navigating their own careers and their own
yeah.
lives. And there's just a lot more on everybody's plates overall that just is a contributing factor that wasn't there before. So the dynamics have changed within families. The costs associated with all of this has changed. The demand of these services has changed. So it really has just become a completely different animal than it was a long time ago.
Sarah, that makes a lot of sense. People who listen to the podcast, most of them are aware that I'm a relatively new grandmother, right? And
Oh, congratulations.
I love my grandkids. It's so much fun being a grandmother, but there was a moment when I was very nervous about it because my mother, by the time my kids were born, my mother wasn't really working. And she had a lot of availability to help out. And likewise, as my grandparents aged, my mother had time to help them out. And so I think about, I'm imagining myself in my career at KidGlov for another 10 years. Well, I'm going to try and be a grandmother. And at some point, we're going to have both my husband's parents and my parents that will need more assistance. And it will be a completely different situation than I recall my parents and my grandparents. I even remember my grandparents and my great grandparents. And I think the answer for my great grandparents was that they came and lived in the home, which I
Yes.
can't even imagine at this moment.
Absolutely. That was the more common approach, to be honest with you. We would tour a lot of people, 20 years ago, and that would be their ultimate answer of, well, I think we're just going to have them move in with us. And we still do see it, but it is far less common than it used
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
This generation had fewer children.
Right.
That's a big piece of it. There's less people, in the family mix to be part of a solution.
Yeah, yeah. So, Sarah, I'm curious. Obviously, this is the family business, and I'm sure there was a certain amount of expectation. But what really inspired you to get involved in continuing this work?
I think to some degree, it was what we did, right? We grew up in this. We started working, my sister and myself and my cousin started working in our senior housing projects. I was 13 when I started working there.
Oh,
So
wow.
we were around seniors, all the time, playing bingo with them and,
Yeah.
making baking with them and doing all sorts of different things, at those centers. Assisted living has kind of much more evolved from there, and it's amazing. And, we really got to work in every single role within our business. We've each done every job that there is. So
Yeah.
I can know and understand, what each job takes and the time and the consideration and the impact it has. But overall, I think we just have a connection to the senior population. We grew up with our great grandparents. I had
Yeah.
all of my grandparents. I've been very lucky and I've been surrounded by them my entire life.
Mm,
We had a vacation home and we were there every weekend with them. So we really grew up immersed around family, but especially around like the aging population.
yeah.
But more so like where I'm at today, I got here because we have so many people now that reach out to me and my team just saying, hey, can you help me navigate the
Mm,
situation I
mm,
have with my parent? This is the situation. They're in rehab or they had a
yeah.
fall. And, what do I do next? Who do I call? And what services are optional for me? And just, the calls have really ramped up over the past, few years of people being confused and not
Yeah.
knowing where to start or where to begin on their search, and how to help their loved one, how to help themselves find support and resources. So really, that's where the aging parent solution idea kind of grew from.
I love that. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that aging parent solution because I think it's a very needed service. So tell us more about that service. And you know what? Even can we start with how did you take it from, hey, I've got a lot of people calling and I'm just answering their questions as a friend to how did you take it to a business model?
Sure. So what we did was we kind of like over the last like 5 years have kind of compiled a list of resources, very carefully
Mm,
curated resources,
hmm
whether they're guidebooks or checklists or
hmm
just one page infographics of all of these various topics, right? Like home safety checklist, fall prevention, dementia signs and stages, Medicare facts, Medicaid facts, VA facts, all sorts of information that we see people coming to us looking for answers of. And so as we compiled this library of resources, we were like, we really just need to share this with people,
Yeah.
right? Like there really isn't a senior education for families, that is going to give them the resources. So at the
hmm
Aging Parent Solution, not only are we offering, a library of resources, but we're offering senior care courses to really walk people through the aging process, all of the factors that contribute, communication, family dynamics, senior
hmm
living options, Medicaid, end of life, all sorts of different things that are very carefully curated. We also have coaching support calls. So if you just want to have us bounce ideas off with you and have a conversation about, this is what we think you might work for you, that's something that we do. We also have case management services. We have support groups. We have a live community inside of our program where people can find, other people going through this same exact situation as you are, right? This is
Yeah.
a very isolating and overwhelming time in your life.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do this alone. We
I
are
love that.
here to support people with that. And the number of baby boomers that will be coming into this industry over the next decade is going to more than double.
Wow.
So, the demand needs to be there for the resources, but also there needs to be an educational component. We need to be able to, educate everyone on what is coming their way. One of the things that we have seen is that we feel the senior industry can be a very siloed industry,
Yeah.
meaning that there's a separation of services, right? So you have home care, assisted living, skilled nursing, and really no integration in between them.
And I think a
So,
lot of people don't understand even the difference between independent
for
living,
sure.
assisted living, skilled nursing, rehab. And then I think you get some organizations, and being a marketing person, I kind of appreciate this, but it adds to the confusion. Sometimes people kind of put their own spin on it and then they have their own names. And it just even
Absolutely.
understanding where do I start can be
Yeah.
overwhelming.
Senior care to me, if you view it like an onion, right, there's just many, many layers.
Yeah.
There's a medical and healthcare layer. There are financial layers. There are legal layers. There
Yes.
are many choices to be made. You need to understand each of these processes, each of the eligibility requirements. What should your income be, in different cases and different variations. At our assisted living communities, we do offer affordable programs through Medicaid
Hmm.
and through VA benefits. So that's
Hmm.
something that we have, worked really closely with, so that way we can provide our families and our seniors with affordable options, because we
Hmm.
think that, senior care and senior living opportunities should be available to everybody.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now what you have is a really an unknown future when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid and even Social Security and veterans aid and attendance benefits. All of that is really going to be an unknown as we proceed forward, and if those programs are affected, it will have a significant impact
Absolutely.
on the overall affordability of programs for the seniors up and coming as they age through the baby boomers. And I think it could be a very serious issue in our
Mm.
industry and a significant challenge that families are now going to have to face on top of everything else that you have already in that layered onion, right?
Yeah.
So it just is a real big animal.
Yeah. So, Sarah, a question I have for you, because you've really convinced me that these services are needed now more than ever. How do you deliver the services? I mean, do you have to be local in one of your markets, or can you deliver them across the country?
We can pretty much deliver them across the country. For our case management services, we are keeping that to Massachusetts and Connecticut, because I think it's important that if we're going to make, direct referrals and recommendations, that it's people that we have built up a trust network with, and people that, we can rely on and that we know are going to take care of the families that we recommend, to the very best degree. But for everything else, I think that the Aging Parent Solution is really an umbrella of resources,
Yeah.
and it can be a one-stop shop. You can come to us and educate your different family members, and we can coach you on, for example, there's a guide and a checklist of, if you're going to call home care agency, if you're going to call
Hmm.
senior living, these are the questions that you should be asking. These are the things that you should be looking at. These are the important factors that should factor into your decision making. So we're really kind of giving them all of these tools and understanding that they're really going to need to make informed decisions. And
That's
that's what it comes
fantastic.
down to, right? We want our families to feel confident and informed that they're making the best decisions on behalf of their loved one that they could possibly make.
Yeah. Sarah, one thing I love about what you're doing is you're helping people through the big decisions, like the financial decisions, the healthcare decisions. I mean, those are important things. But I think another thing that's important is, at this time in life, you've got generations kind of changing roles. And you've got your parent who's been like your hero and caretaker their whole lives, and they're changing. And I think just the fact that you're offering coaching and understanding, so that I think as people understand what's going on and have empathy for what's going on, it even improves those relationships, because you want those, whether it's the last few years, the last few months, weeks, or days, you want your relationship to be positive. And sometimes, understanding what's happening really makes that more positive too. So I
A
really do
hundred
love
percent.
that.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely something that we see. We have more so recently over the last couple of years really seen that, these family members that we work very closely with want their parent to
Yeah.
have such an amazing end of life experience, such an
Hmm.
amazing time throughout their golden years. because a lot of them feel they gave me an amazing
Yes.
childhood.
Yes.
And this is, they took care of me my whole life. And now it's my turn to reciprocate that. It's my turn to give back to them.
Yes.
And I don't know how to do that without, understanding all of these different layers. And I think that the more education that families receive, about even like, cognitive impairments and how those
Mm-hmm.
can first start to show, and how just understanding that and understanding how to communicate with somebody in that situation really can change the dynamic if you know what you're doing and you know what's expected. And it just gives you a lot more information to work with.
Absolutely. So, Sarah, for people who are listening who are like, wow, I am in this situation. I really need it. I want to check it out. How can they find out more about the Aging Parent Solution and honestly, any of your family of companies?
So you can check us out online at theagingparentsolution.com or
Okay.
the arborsassistedliving.com. Those are our websites, and hopefully enough information there to guide you in the right direction.
That sounds great. And once again, also as a marketer, I'm really glad you got the agingparentsolution.com as your URL. URLs are getting hard to come by these
Yes,
days.
they
So
are.
we will have all of those links in the show notes on the KidGlov
Great.
site as well. Before we leave this topic, though, Sarah, I'd really like to ask you, beyond just connecting with the Aging Parent Solution, what advice do you have for families who might be struggling right now to navigate the whole complex situation that is senior living?
Yeah. I'd say first and foremost, to start early and start planning
Yeah.
ahead. That
Yeah.
is the number one thing, right? We see so many families wait until they're in a
Yeah.
crisis situation. And a lot of times they wait because they don't want to have that uncomfortable conversation with their
Yeah.
parent, right? It can be uncomfortable to say, hey, I've been noticing that there's a decline, or we should really sit down and go through your finances and your legal paperwork.
Yeah.
That can be awkward.
Right.
So I'd say like just to get over that hump would be first to be proactive,
Hmm.
ensure that you have the necessary legal documents in place. And then to start the education process of, the senior living options, home care, assisted living, adult daycare, all sorts of different things. And what do you think that your parent might be interested in? What
Hmm.
might work for your family may not work for another family.
Right.
So it's going to be paramount that families also come together, right? A lot of times it will fall solely on one member of the family.
Yep. And
And
that
then
is
that
almost always the oldest daughter, isn't
always,
it?
almost
Oldest
always the
daughters.
oldest
Yeah.
daughter.
So
Yeah.
oldest daughters get those other siblings together right
Yeah,
now and
you need
start
help. You
having this
can't do this alone.
conversation.
It's a
Yeah.
very isolating and lonely part
Hmm.
of life, right? And it's so overwhelming that you don't want to do this alone. You need your
Hmm.
family support. You need them to be on the same page as you. It's important to delegate. It's
Mm.
important as a family to say, okay, we need to have a family meeting about mom. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to do. Use a scheduling tool, use a group calendar,
Oh, yeah.
share tasks, share jobs, take turns going to doctor's appointments. It's about communicating with your family and communicating with your loved one, joining a support group or working with a professional if you truly feel you're in over your head.
Yeah.
Get the proper guidance that you need for your family to be successful.
That's great. Really, really great advice. Sarah, I want to switch gears a little bit. Everyone who listens to Agency for Change knows that I am inspired by motivational quotes, and you do such inspiring work, and your great award for the best culture in the world. I really want to ask you this question because I'd love to have a Sara Robertson motivational quote to inspire our listeners.
Sure. Something that my team hears me say all the time, I probably get sick of it, is that data is always telling us a story.
Oh,
So if you look at the past 25 years of the industry, right, there's been trends and opportunities, and along the way, the data and the information that we have collected has really guided us in the right direction. You need to be proactive, in order to build trust and confidence and take the business in the next proper direction, to make informed decisions, to, really be successful in this market that's highly competitive, you have to consistently look at the data in front of you and the trends and the opportunities that are emerging. And, overall, just like, where is this industry going? And you need to, do your due diligence and, what statistically is coming, the baby boomers, and what impact is that going to have? And what does that mean for the industry overall? And I think that by looking at the different sets of data and data that we even collect within our business, it's telling you a story. It's showing you where there are needs and where there are gaps in care and where we are missing significant pieces of information for families to make the right decisions.
Yeah. You know what is so fascinating is I hear you say that, and I love that quote. Data is always telling us a story, because I am a storyteller. But yeah, if you can take that data and help it back up. But I think about your grandparents and your parents, as they moved into this business. I'm guessing at some point, someone in the generation said, it looks like senior housing is going to be a really big opportunity for us. And it looks like assisted living.
Absolutely.
And now you have gone in and your generation has said, it looks like education is going to be the next big thing. So that seems
100%. You got it, Lynn.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. My dad really saw the need coming, and same with me. I've really seen this need for the senior care education. It's just a huge gaping hole in our industry.
Yeah. Yeah. So Sara, I'm really curious about the next generation. Do you think they'll want to continue the
So my
family
kids actually
business?
run a Tech with Seniors program at our assisted living communities. They run bingo. My daughter's a receptionist. So they are actively involved in our communities. They love it.
That's
Our
amazing.
Nana lives at one of our communities, so we go and visit. And so they love being involved. It is still a family business, and we are still all involved. And my kids are growing up in it just as we grew up in it.
I think that's fantastic. Congratulations to
Thank
you
you
and
so
the
much, Lynn.
family. Yep. Sara, I have one last question as we wrap up our time together today. And I really have loved this conversation. I love the work that you're doing. And I'm curious, as we wrap this up, what is the most important thing you would like our listeners to remember about the work that you're doing?
One, I would say just, don't get discouraged. I think that there's a lot to learn. And I think that, somebody like myself and our experts in our field, they know everything that they know because they're truly experts, and that this is all we have done for 30 years. We can't expect, people and families that we work with to know any of that information. And that's why I think, you can't be so hard on yourself that this is so frustrating and so overwhelming. That's why, we are pushing that, if you have questions, reach out to us. Let us be your guide on this journey. Let us help you navigate the complexities of this world, because it really is a complex world.
Yeah, you don't have to do it alone.
No,
right?
definitely
You can
not.
get help. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Sara, congratulations on all the good work and the growth and the new company. I'm going to say I fully believe the world needs more people like you,
Well, thank
more
you so much.
services like the Aging Parent Solution and the Ivy and the Arbors. And really, I appreciate you taking time out today to talk with us.
I'm so glad that you had me on. Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed today's Agency for Change podcast. To hear all our interviews with those who are making a positive change in our communities, or to nominate a changemaker you'd love to hear from, visit KidGlov.com at KIDGLOV.com to get in touch. As always, if you like what you've heard today, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.